welcome back to Weatherford Daze. I'm Rachel. This is Jason. We're thrilled that you could join us today. I always say that.
Well,
that we're thrilled.
If we're
thrilled,
if
we're excited, we're ecstatic,
we're exuding exuberant. We're enthused.
We're exuding anticipation for our conversation.
Well, the source of the word enthuse is entheos, which means God in you, and so we are. Anyway, Jason, Rachel, we already said that. We are deep in some Jules Verne territory. Oh, I just made a pun. What are we talking about? Something cool?
Journey to the center of the earth
to find a penny. And if you don't have kids or you don't have taste, you won't know that's from Backyardigans. So, and here it is. Okay.
Yes, we're going to journey to the center of the earth today, though I am going to go ahead and say up front, I had thought that my least favorite Jules Verne book was Around the World in 80 Days. I was wrong. This one, rereading it now as an adult, I'm going, yeah, this is just not me.
It's
good.
Yeah.
It's still good. I mean, Jules Verne was an excellent writer.
Yeah.
There's interest there, but I found I don't know, my interest was kind of just petering off.
I wonder if it's because it takes so long for them to get down there. But when you dealing with Mysterious Island or 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the journey is part of, it's not the destination, it's the journey. But
I actually found it way more interesting before they got there.
Really?
To me, what actually, the best part of this book is the character development, or the most interesting to me was the character development, even though, another spoiler, but I'm sure we'll get into it, I didn't like the characters.
Either one?
No.
What about Hans? There's three main characters. Don't be lied to by the movie. There's three main characters. We'll talk about them in just a minute, but
yeah. I did not like any of the characters. I did not find any of them to be what I thought to actually be strong characters.
Oh, okay.
Not that they weren't. Well, I felt like the main character, the professor, was that actually Jules Verne didn't do a good job writing him. I thought that he was confusing as a character. I felt like I was reading two different people at times. And then the book is told from the main point of view of Axel,
who's the nephew?
The nephew of the professor.
Professor Otto Lidenbrock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I felt like I couldn't decide whether he was actually the only sensible person,
right? The
or
only
whether
sane
he
man.
was just a whiny little kid.
So if he serves as the audience, the audience character, we are in a sense Axel, but yet if we feel like a whiny kid, you're like, that's not me, and it just kind of messes with your brain.
I felt like there was so much kind of bouncing around in feelings about how they actually, both of them, felt along the journey, that it just, well, especially Axel. Axel goes back and forth about how he's actually feeling, but most of the time he's just being dragged along unwillingly. He doesn't want to be there.
And he wants to go back.
So
he's like, we've succeeded.
Really
can we go now?
Bad attitude throughout the entire book. So having a book written from the perspective of somebody that doesn't actually want to be there kind of makes me feel like I don't want to be reading the book. I mean, do you get that?
Well, here's the thing. There are parts where Axel goes, I think as we get further into to the interior of this globe, it's going to be, we should see hotter climes. And I went, yes, Axel, you're correct. That's the scientific. But then the professor goes, I do not think so. I think that you're incorrect, and based upon this guy and this guy and this guy, I think that, and he gets proven correct. That, and, as far that, and Axel
But
gets
it
proven wrong.
almost seems like the professor is working off of some kind of mysterious higher knowledge rather than actual facts. Like there's
Yeah.
almost this mystical knowledge that he has.
He knows because he knows. And
Right.
you're like,
Whereas Axel is working off of actually known theories and facts
observations.
and observations, and it doesn't seem like that really fits. Like, why does the professor have this mysterious knowledge and
Because Jules Verne made it up. He knows because the author knows. He read the book. He read the book that he's a part of.
So with all that being said,
Okay, yeah.
let's go ahead and we're going to briefly give the plot in case you, our listeners, do not know this plot yet, or if you have only ever watched the movies, and in that case, you don't know the plot of the book either, really.
Right.
Because those are kind of vastly different. So we're going to focus, I think, mainly on the book today, though maybe we'll get a little bit into the movie. We'll see.
Yeah, the main one that I know of. There may be other, movie adaptations, but this is probably the one that honestly, the movie I think I saw clips of before I read the book, and I read the little comic book version of it, and so I think in my mind I was like, this is going to be different, and it didn't sit right.
From the movie, you go, oh, this is a book all about dinosaurs, going and discovering dinosaurs in the center of the earth, and then the movie or the book is just like,
there's only two prehistoric species.
You do see some, but it's really not on the same level as what the movie is. But we're not there yet. Okay.
Germany. Let's go to Germany.
We start out in Germany, which that is something that, just side note, I like the fact that Jules Verne can write characters from different countries well. In 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, our main character is Frenchman. In The Mysterious Island, he's from their main characters are from America.
Side note, he wrote Ned Land in such a way, and that may be the translators. I started thinking about this a little bit after reading 20,000 Leagues and some of his other stuff. Is how much of it is the translators kind of softening what he's writing or not? Or are they being, are they really hewing to the written word? I don't know. But Ned Land was written pretty well, for a Canadian. I felt this Canadianness. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But like I said, I appreciate that he was somebody that was comfortable writing characters, and I felt like the way that he represented the different characters from the different countries is pretty good. I mean, we may not feel quite the same way once we get into Around the World in 80 Days, which will be next week, because I seem to remember a little bit more caricatures as we're going around the world. But we'll see.
I'm ready for some.
What we're feeling there.
I'm kind of preparing myself for some. How do I put this? Casual racism or casual racist thought that
Generally, things that are written in the 1800s are going to come across as racist to modern day.
We saw a little bit of that in 20,000 Leagues with the people from the islands, and I'm thinking, here we go. But
yeah, though I feel like Jules Verne is probably a lot less racist than a lot of his contemporaries, just because he was very well traveled and he appreciated a lot of different cultures, which you can see by the fact that we're in Germany. Though he didn't seem to really like his professor very much.
Yeah, and you have to let some of that stuff go, and when you read these things.
He describes him as a savant, a very eccentric, and
he knew multiple languages, did he not?
He does.
Polyglot.
He's a polyglot. He's very learned, and yet very extremely emotionally. How would you say that? He's kind of violent, emotionally
I
violent.
thought he was stubborn. He was like, when he's made up his mind about something, you can't convince him of anything else, and he just wants to stick with his thought.
Yeah, but he's very selfish also.
He's narrow-minded
while we're,
in some ways.
well, especially at the
Okay.
beginning, like think
Yeah.
about the way that his nephew is describing him. He goes, he's throwing temper tantrums and like banging stuff and knocking over his stuff whenever he's frustrated, right? He gets on something and he goes, you know what? Until I've figured this out, not only am I not going to eat, no one else in the house is going to eat. And in order to ensure that nobody else in the house eats, I'm going to lock everyone in for days. And that's actually, the discovery, and we'll go ahead and talk about this because I'm jumping around. Sorry.
Yeah.
But he brings back a book. It's an old book that he's really excited about, but
It's about
as he's
200, 300 years old. It's really old, yeah.
several hundred years old, he's really excited, and inside this book there falls out a piece of paper that has writing on it, and he's able to recognize, I think, the signature, but he can't understand what the message is. It's written in a code. And so that, he realizes that this is written by Arne Sarknussum, right? And that, he recognizes the name as being this ancient scholar, that...
Like an alchemist.
Right. He goes, this guy was a genius. He was another savant, but they don't really know a lot about him other than just he was.
He's Scandinavian.
Right. But I guess they've lost a lot of his works or something like that. So, yeah, he has this message and they have the name, but they don't know what it says. And so that's what he goes into this, just focused, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to rest, nobody else is going to eat until we figured out what this is. And by chance, his nephew, Axel, is able to actually decode or figure out how to solve it. And
the professor's narrow mind, he's not able to see outside of his ways of doing it. Mm-hmm. And Axel is somehow able to go, oh, well, it's like this. And
Axel he's fanning himself with the paper.
Yeah.
And it, like, from that back and forth, he actually realizes, oh, you're supposed to, like, read it backwards. And, the professor almost had it right, but he was not doing it quite correctly. So he's able to read the message. And when he reads what it says, he goes, oh no, I can't let the professor know what this says because I know what's going to happen if I do. So he is determined that he's not going to actually share the key until he goes a few days without eating. And the housekeeper is not getting to eat either. And so finally he gives in and tells his uncle how to solve it. And unfortunately for him, his uncle has the exact reaction that he was afraid of. He's like, okay, this is just given the directions for how to journey to the center of the earth. Like where you go in, that there's an opening, and Arne Sarknussum says that he's been to the center of the earth and back, and so now the professor wants to go.
Yeah, actually the translation I read said the interior of the earth, so center, interior. But it reminded me of I think I made a joke about it with you. Remember it's the map in The Hobbit where it said, oh, on this certain day, the swallow will peck its beak on the deal with the moon, and the sun at the last day of fall will come down there. And in this in this
the last days of July,
in this
right?
code, and it has to be a certain light and it's going to hit the shadow of Scartaris or something, and on this mountain called Snuffle or something. Oh, as a side note, there
I
is
bet it's Snuffle.
Snuffle. Yes, thank you.
Kind of thought of it as snowfall.
So the word Scartaris was actually stolen from this book. There is okay, I'll do this real quick. There is a character in DC Comics. He's a warlord, and he's in the center of the earth, in the center called Scartaris. It's like in the hollow earth part is called Scartaris, and anyway. That's
Oh, that's fun.
because when it said Scartaris, I was like, Scartaris, that's from Warlord of,
Heard that.
you know, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry.
So, yeah, then the professor decides that he's going to get together all the supplies and he's going to go on a journey and he's going to drag his nephew along with him. And the nephew doesn't want to go. Axel is in love with the professor's granddaughter. Goddaughter.
She's like a ward.
She's his ward and goddaughter.
Okay.
Yes.
Not by blood, though, right?
No, goddaughters are not by blood.
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, you become someone's godfather or godmother because you're good friends with their parents, and you basically say, I'm going to invest into this child.
It's a Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson thing. Yeah.
But it's
taking care
basically also a commitment that you say that if anything were to happen to the parents, that you would take care of the child.
Of course.
That is a commitment that went along with being the godparent.
Yeah.
So obviously something happened to
a friend of theirs, yeah. Whoever.
Her name, I'm not even sure how to...
Grauben.
Okay, did you look up the pronunciation?
I had it pronounced for me.
Okay, cool, because I forgot to look that up. Grauben, yes.
I could be wrong, but they could be wrong.
So, yes, the nephew is in love with the goddaughter, and she's in love with him. They're secretly engaged. The professor doesn't know it, and he doesn't want to leave her. But unfortunately, Grauben, when she hears about the expedition, is like, oh, yeah, you should totally go. That's going to set you up so that we can get married. You'll come back and you'll be famous and you'll be able to,
yeah.
What she says,
if you come back alive,
a boy and you'll come back a man. And, she's going, yeah, well, that's going to be what we need to actually be able to get married. So she's all excited about it, and he basically is like, oh, okay, well then, I guess I'm going, but still really doesn't want to go. And it seems to be throughout this entire thing kind of in a state of shock and trepidation. He never really resigns himself to what they're doing the entire time. I think he just kind of is stumbling along throughout the entire book, just kind of not really sure how he got there. Which, again, having something written from the perspective of a character that's not really sure how they got there and not invested I don't think I've ever read another book written from that perspective, where there wasn't at least a moment of them embracing
a scientific curiosity or something, or something that impels them or compel. Yeah.
And I mean, you do see him, because he also loves rocks and that kind of stuff, like the professor does, and mineralogy and all of this. So he is of a scientific mind. I just don't, there's parts of the expedition that he can appreciate. Again, he's just not quite, his steadfast belief is that the center of the core of the earth, rather, is a burning mass, and there's, if they try to get there, they're going to burn up. So,
and if they tried to do it today, he would be right, but in 1860, 1870, he's dead wrong. And guess who's right is Mr. Professor, because if he's right, we get an adventure. If he's wrong, we get 2 charred up corpses,
which would be rather unfortunate.
Yeah.
But Jules Verne, and that's kind of the thing. With the other books, that we've read, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Mysterious Island, I read them thinking, this could totally happen. It could totally be real. And I'm excited to go along the journey. I want to. I would actually enjoy this. Yes, there's some perilous parts of it, but I would want to do it. This one, no, I don't want to. This is actually describing my worst nightmare. Going deep into the center of the earth.
Well, it's claustrophobia, and what's the night that is called nyctophobia? Is the fear of the darkness? Hey, look,
Yeah.
if I'm right, I'll put it. Yeah.
Which, okay, so they go along.
Yeah.
One of the very striking parts to me is they get on a ship. They're traveling to Iceland.
Which is where Mount Snuffleupagus is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they pass an insane asylum, and little Axel is thinking, that's a huge place, but I don't think that even that would be large enough for my uncle.
For his insanity.
Yes, the amount of insanity is just too
The amount of
big here.
insanity he has would take up a whole wing of the. Yeah.
And I mean, another thing, as they're going along this journey, they have a couple of days wait somewhere. I forget where it is that they're stopped. And the professor's dragging him up this tall building, right? And he's scared of heights. And the professor's like, well, we need to cure you of that. Here we go. And so he's dragging Axel day after day up this tower to get over his fear of heights. And Axel's like shaking and like climbing on his like knees trying to get up this because his professor is such a tyrant.
Well, I can relate. I have a fear of heights, and it's my brain kicks over and I want to jump. It's like you get the inner thoughts that tell you to jump.
Either the professor is completely unreasonable and tyrannical, making him do this, and Axel is actually a sensible person that should be respected, or Axel is a whiny little baby and the professor's actually
doing him some good,
doing him a favor. And I don't know which one from the way that it's written. It's kind of like I don't know how to feel about this scene. Am I witnessing abuse, or am I witnessing
a psychological experiment to kind of
an actual kindness? And I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards abuse.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there's only one part that the heights even come into it, because if you think about it, it would be a fear of depths, because they're going, they're not going high, they're going low.
Right.
If that makes sense.
But they are going down these, straight up and down chasms, like dangling by ropes to get down. So there's
okay, that tracks a little bit.
But typically, if you're scared of heights, it doesn't really matter how many times you're exposed to them. It's still going to be terrifying. But
well, the most terrifying part to me was there's a part where he's separated from the professor, and the light, he doesn't have any lights.
Yeah.
And in the book it says, am I right? It said 4 days without light.
Yes.
Complete darkness. He doesn't have anybody else there with him. I'm like, nope. Yeah.
He got separated from the professor and Hans, their guide.
Yeah, they meet a guide. Yeah.
Right. Who does not have a duck named Gertrude like
that's
he does
in the movie. That's in the movie. Yeah.
That's a very different thing. But that was horrifying. I mean, you're describing like because at first he has a light, and it's this electrical lantern, and then he falls and breaks the lantern, and then he's just kind of goes into this crazy state where he's just running, and he's kind of hoping that he'll just bash his head against the rock and die. I mean, he really literally is going, I can't do this. And he ends up tripping and just falling a very long way. And after, he falls and like lands in this pile of rock, he wakes up and the professor has found him.
Luckily.
Yeah. And from then on, we kind of enter this magical, even more magical. Like up until that point, things kind of make sense. Okay, we're in these caverns and, we're going through lava tubes and, it's kind of believable. But after this, he wakes up and they have discovered this vast cavern with an ocean inside of it that's lit by electricity somehow.
Well, I mean, bioluminescence is it comes from living creatures, though. It doesn't necessarily come from chemical. Could be chemicals in the water.
They explained in the movie a little bit better how that light could be there than they did in the book. The book doesn't really explain it. It kind of leaves it as a mystery, which is interesting.
Don't they bring up bioluminescence in 20,000 Leagues? So that means Jules Verne should know about some of that stuff, but he doesn't interweave that here. Sorry.
That the Nautilus was producing the electricity and the bioluminescence. And we didn't have anything necessarily here that explained it. And they do kind of leave it as I don't know how it's happening, but it's here. Which kind of goes, we're going from science fiction into the fantasy realm at this point in the book, where there's kind of these mysterious things happening that are never explained.
Well, this at the time people were obsessed with, just like people are obsessed now on the internet with absolute pseudoscience, like the flat Earth theory. They had the hollow Earth theory, and that was their explanation for so many different things. It almost got into esoteric stuff, like the ancient peoples that built the pyramids and built all these things. Of course, they must still exist, and they're down in the center of the earth, and somehow there's supposed to be this sun or this light, this inner light that, think of it like walking on the inside of a basketball. That's what they thought it was like. And there's an entrance at the North Pole and the South Pole to get in. And yeah, it's not scientifically feasible or plausible, but people were obsessed with it, and it just, kind of weaved its way in there. I will tell you, Edgar Rice Burroughs, who did Tarzan, he has a mythology that he weaved into the Tarzan stuff about the Earth's core. He has a book called At the Earth's Core. That stuff's interesting. That stuff, he just went, you want fantasy? Here we go. You want science fiction adventure? Here we go. And it didn't try to make scientific sense of it. And I think that was much more entertaining than what this would be. It didn't try to make it work and fail at it. But
I mean, I still do. I think this is an entertaining book.
Yeah.
I just think that for me, it was a little bit of a step down from Mysterious Island, just in the believability of it.
So the characterization hurt it for you some?
It did. I really liked the characters from Mysterious Island. I felt like they were strong. They were people that I could admire and look up to. And I did not like the professor. I did not like Axel. Even Hans, he's described as basically almost a robot, He doesn't really have an opinion of his own. He's there and he's going to do whatever the professor asks him to do. And he doesn't really have an opinion about how mad the adventure is that they're going on. I mean, he's kind of the perfect person to bring along because he'll go anywhere and do anything. But, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more personality there, other than just someone who is strong and who, they end up really owing him.
He's a big lummox, like Palooka. He just kind of like this. But,
you look at Pencroft and Gideon Spilett and Cyrus Harding and Neb
Herbert.
and Herbert, and how strong
Ayrton.
and interesting, yeah, all of those characters are, and their backstories.
Even Nemo and Ned Land and Conseil, and I was about to bring up,
like even Conseil, who is another
he's minor,
servant, he still has a voice and a personality to him, and you really end up liking his character and what he contributes to the story. And I don't feel like we got that.
Some people say Nemo is an anti-hero or a villain, but I didn't dislike him as much as I kind of felt. The Professor Lidenbrock is very prickly, and Nemo has his faults and has the ways that he operates, but he's a fascinating character.
And then there are times and things that Professor Lidenbrock, that he actually seems like a actual cool human being. Like, there's those times that are written in there that I'm going, oh, there's this glimmer of a person that is actually likable. He sits down and plays with these children, in this Icelandic home where they've got like 20 kids or something, and the kids are climbing all over him, and he's just like, okay, cool, and that doesn't fit this little temper tantrum having professor, that is kind of rude to everybody and completely self-focused.
Do you think Verne didn't have like a good idea, or was that really his personality, or do you think Verne kind of couldn't quite get a grasp on his characterization? That's why it's all over the place.
When Herbert falls and you see the professor encouraging him and helping
Axel.
him. What did I say?
Herbert.
Oh, sorry, yes, Axel. I don't know why I would get those guys confused.
No.
But yeah, so Axel falls and you see the professor encouraging and helping him and, tending to him. And you see, when they run out of food later on, and the professor is just very stoic and steadfast and, very calm and collected. And it's like the attitude that he has then and the encouragement that he has for Axel is just, I'm going, wow,
Who is that? Right. Where'd that come from?
This is a completely different person. This is somebody that I can admire, that I can look up to. Why haven't I seen this?
Well, give it a chapter and he'll be completely stubborn again.
Yeah. And, I was kind of hoping with watching the movie that I would get a little bit better handle on who the professor is. But
nope.
It was just a completely different character. You don't get the same, he's not even the same nationality.
Yeah.
They said the movie that we watched was set in Scotland.
He's Scottish, yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, no. They didn't even try to have the same character here.
Well, there's a lot of added characters. Instead of having 3 that you're looking at, we go, let's add another one. Let's add another one. Let's add an antagonist.
Or 2.
Or yeah, why not?
Yeah. Might as well.
Yeah.
Have a completely, that one has, it's so much.
Well, they added characters, they added lizards.
Yes. Giant lizards.
Yeah. When when you mentioned when they were down in the with the water in the center of the earth, they do find an ichthyosaur and a plesiosaur. And if you don't know what those are, sorry, you weren't me at 7, but I'll put them on screen here. So yeah, they are not quite what you would call theropod and dinosaur. They're dinosaur adjacent. If you want to get really pedantic, which I can be pretty pedantic with dinosaurs.
Right, like they're going through the ocean, and there's actually a battle between these 2 giant sea creatures that they're just kind of trying to go get by and not.
So if you want a Jurassic Park, you're not getting it. You're getting 2 creatures, and it moves on. And I actually didn't mind that too much. It was mysterious, and I think in my mind I had been lied to by childhood memories, and I thought there's got to be more dinosaurs, and there weren't.
Well, the other time that we see dinosaurs is after they land, which they get to a certain point in the ocean, like they've been there for a long time.
It's a big ocean, like Mediterranean big. I mean, they
And
say it's huge, many
there's
leagues.
not a current, if I'm remembering correctly, but there is a wind that's going across. So they have a sail, but then they end up in a storm and get blown for quite some time. They have to like lash themselves to the raft, and yeah, it's quite harrowing. And they end up back on a shore, and they realize that they've gone back almost to where they were. And they're just devastated because they thought that at the other side of the ocean that they would then find the pathway to continue going down to the center. And ending up going for weeks and then losing all that progress is just really devastating. But
how many times does Axel say, "Yeah, we're good. We can go now. We can go back now"?
Yeah.
And the professor goes, "No, we must push on, and we have to do it." And I'm like, okay, you don't have a bet or a wager. This is just your own knowledge.
First it was just a lack of water, and then it's going, there's no way for us to continue going on. Like, we can't go on, so we might as well go back. But yeah, the professor's not going to give up. And they end up at that point, once they've gotten to the shore again, finding a forest. And in that forest, Axel sees a giant, and that's apparently herding mastodons. So,
which are prehistoric elephants.
And they also find a graveyard, don't they?
Oh yes, tons of bones.
Yeah, tons of bones.
And even a human skeleton.
Human skeletons, yeah.
Which lets them believe maybe somebody got down here somehow from the surface world. And
well, they actually find a perfectly preserved skeleton with, skin and everything still intact, which is interesting because it's a white man. And so, yeah, there's a lot of kind of questions of what this is doing to the evolutionary theories of the day, huh?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I was there for the story and for the characters, and I guess evolutionary theory has not really been something that I've been extremely fascinated by. Though I'm sure that if people are, that they would really love this. And in the history of, the evolution of evolutionary theory. And especially because this is written from a Christian perspective, so he's kind of putting together this, evolutionary theory with the idea of a creator, which is
called theistic.
Yeah.
But the thing is, every one of Jules Verne's stories has some kind of exploration, some kind of travel to it. If it's not traveling, like Mysterious Island, it's exploration. It's environment. It's what's around us. Even when they're stuck on the Nautilus, it's they even leave the Nautilus and what's around. But I don't know if you'd call this truly science fiction. I think it aided in it, but I think that science fiction is an evolutionary thing. It would evolve. I mean, would you call Mary Shelley and Frankenstein, would you call that science fiction, or would you call it gothic thriller, or
I do think, though, that Jules Verne really did want to share the wonders of the world and of science.
And science, yes.
And do it in a way that was interesting, and that was, his stories were kind of the side quest to the science. And just, I love that about the way that he wrote. Like, I think that is what truly makes him a standout. I can appreciate that just from an educational point of view. I think we should have more like that. I would love if we had more like that. But And that's also one of the reasons why this one isn't as exciting for me, because I felt like the characters weren't quite as good. The story is interesting, the concept is interesting, but I felt like we didn't get quite as much of the explanation along the way. There wasn't quite as much actual, okay, well, we come across this problem and this is how we're going to solve it.
Right.
And so, yeah. But to get back to our plot,
yeah,
they find some markings on the wall, and it's again AS. So we've got the initials of Arne
Sarknism.
I've been saying that
we
entire time.
We pronounced it multiple different ways during this podcast session we're having right now, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind,
But yeah, so they're like, oh, okay, well, we've found the passage. This is how we continue on our journey. And so they go to go down this passageway, and it's blocked. And I think it's Axel that actually realizes that, the blockage is a recent, it's happened since the other guy would have gone through, and so they need
in the last 300 years.
Right. They need to unblock the passage, and they'll be able to keep going. And they decide, okay, well, we've got explosives. Let's explode the rock, and we'll be able to keep going through. So they get on their raft. Well, like they make a trail, and they're like, okay, it's going to take like 10 minutes or something, right, for it to explode. And they get back on the raft just to be far enough away from the explosion in case anything happens. And the explosion happens, and it creates a chasm where the ocean starts pouring down with it. So they're on the raft, which is a good thing, and they just take off and they're just falling for a long time. And as they're going, they realize that during the explosion and the falling and everything, they've lost all of their food, all of their supplies and instruments and everything. And yeah.
Well, I think they're falling down.
They start off by falling down, and then all of a sudden they end up going up. So then they're ascending, and things start getting hotter as they go, and they realize that they're no longer on water, they're ascending on volcanic matter.
Or I thought it was like gases, like a shook up Sprite or something like that, like with a cork on a wine bottle. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. It's just kind of, they're going up, and the water has been replaced by what they said, volcanic matter. It didn't really say gases, I didn't think. Maybe we read different versions.
Go figure.
Who knows? But they're now going up, and they're going to be shot out of a volcano, which is interesting.
Dangerous.
Right. They pass out from the pressure. At least Axel and the professor do, and Hans keeps them on, which is, again, like I said, they owe him a lot. They end up waking up on the side of a mountain and realize that they are in Italy, right? Stromboli. They're on an Italian island, and they've just ended up getting out through a volcano. So in through a dormant volcano, out through an active volcano. And
they do eventually get back home.
Yeah, they get back home. The professor gets his fame. Axel gets married.
Grauben got tired of waiting for Axel and got remarried to the milkman down the road. No, that doesn't happen.
Axel and Grauben get married. Everything is happily ever after.
She's a good German girl.
Hans goes back home.
To Iceland, I guess is where that is.
Iceland, yeah. And, it's kind of that's the end. It kind of happens very quickly.
Yeah.
At the end. It's just like, there's not a lot left to say other than, they kind of made it. In the movie, I thought it was interesting because they have a moment where they're like, there's this electrical storm and the polarity and everything, which signals that they're at the center of the Earth. And in the book, you don't actually get that moment. They don't necessarily make it to the center.
Are you talking about the part where in the movie all their metal stuff starts flying out, and you watched this and you laughed like a silly person.
Oh, that's a gold tooth
that gets pulled out. It's like that's not iron. That's not made out of iron. What is wrong with you? And yeah,
it's the most ridiculous.
It is ridiculous
part, but it's in there, like they added it in so that they actually accomplished their mission in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's like that's very notably missing from the book. They don't actually make it.
Do you know how big the Earth is? To have a center to the Earth, it would have to be huge, but it's just this size of our living room. It's just okay, all right. Oh, and at the end, they almost have not a parade, but they have like a recognition of the professor and all that, and all his students are just clapping and saying how great he is, and I'm like, okay, that's not in the book.
No. They added a lot for the movie, but I mean, both are enjoyable and can kind of complement each other, I think. Just kind of knowing that one is adding on a lot.
A lot of animal abuse, too. What they used to do a long time ago in sci-fi movies is instead of using CG, they would take a lizard of some sort and they would glue bits to him and say, dinosaur. And you never see what happened to that lizard later, and I'm just like, poor lizard. But anyway, if you don't like that kind of thing, you may want to skip those scenes. But you know, it's only useful as a
what did I take from this book and this exploration? I thought that one of the things that was interesting is just a compare and contrast. Like while we're talking about the different characters, right? In 20,000 Leagues and Mysterious Island, I thought it was interesting that these main characters are ones that I admire, and yet none of them chose necessarily to face quite what they were facing. They ended up in situations kind of that were chosen for them, beyond their control.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't something that they chose to do. And yet they faced what came with intelligence, with hard work, with, courage. Yeah, and you could admire them for that. In this one, he chose. You know, the professor chose, and Axel, by not fighting, kind of chose to be dragged along on this mission, which is rather insane. And I didn't admire that, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And I think that, just a slight spoiler for next week. If we look at Around the World in 80 Days, this is another one that our main character chooses to go on a crazy journey. And you kind of go, there's some mixed feelings about.
And there's another character who is going along with it, and he's kind of compelled to. But anyway.
Yeah, but you kind of have some mixed feelings about these characters that are choosing these crazy journeys. But I would say my most mixed feelings are the ones that, this is the craziest journey that anybody could choose to go on.
Yeah.
To actually choose to go into the center of the Earth really unprepared, without backup.
You could die. There's no. You can't just go, hey, let's stop. You can't stop.
And ending up almost dying from lack of water at one point, almost dying from lack of food at another point, almost drowning multiple times, almost burning up, all of the different perils that they face, that it's kind of like they end up getting out of them through luck more so than intelligence. And just kind of sheer blind belief that things are going to work out was what seemed to motivate the professor, rather than actually, going, oh, he's prepared and he's intelligent. There's those glimmers there that are like, I want to see that. I want to be able to go, he's actually has some reason to believe that this is going to work out beyond just sheer faith. But yeah, I mean, to me, that was kind of the most interesting thing character wise that I could pull from this was that, if I'm going to do anything in life, let me not choose to be dumb, but if I end up in circumstances beyond my control, let me meet those circumstances with courage, with intelligence, and then with faith in God that if I'm doing the best that I can, that He will take care of the rest. And gratefulness when He does.
Right.
And I feel like, let me not go headstrong and stubbornly into peril of my own choosing, believing that through my own strength I will get through, and that I will be rewarded for my insanity and my selfishness rather than my trust in God and my intelligence to get me through. Like,
well, it in some ways that mirrors famous explorers, because many times you're thinking, well, they were trying to find a passage to the West Indies and or India, and here they found the Caribbean. So in a way, there is an element of luck. Is it luck or is it providence? But that's a little bit different, because
but
if you sail enough, you're
goes
gonna,
a
yeah,
long way.
yeah.
And that's the thing. I don't really know what those, explorers, the real life explorers, I don't know what their attitudes were. I hope that they were admirable, but I can examine and contrast these characters that Jules Verne has written and
Right.
given to us, and just going, I would much rather be Cyrus Harding than be Professor Lidenbrock.
Lidenbrock.
And that tells you right there. I didn't even like
Yeah.
him enough to be able to really remember his name.
So the question is, I've got two questions for you. Well, yeah. The first one is the characters in the movie. You actually got to see them and see their emotions a little bit more. Were they more endearing to you than the book characters? I found that they kind of were, or maybe I'm just blinded by my love of James Mason as an actor, and how he just has that kind of a voice and talks like that all the time, and I like him. He played Nemo, he played this, and I like him, and so I kind of like his character a little bit better in the movie than in the book.
Yeah.
As
But
far
at
as
the same
likability.
time, I guess I was going, this isn't even the character that was written in the, how am I supposed to evaluate
Yeah.
when it's not even the right person?
Right.
But I still, I liked him. I still thought he was a very imperfect
Yeah.
character, but you can't take someone who's so flawed and make them an actual admirable character.
You have to introduce
Completely.
actual good qualities, or at least a redemption arc, which he gets one.
But I still feel like, the things in the movie that I didn't like, which, that they introduced a woman, a love interest for the professor, who ends up, she's widowed right before she ends up going on this expedition with the professor and falling in love with the professor on the way. And I'm going, that's kind of ick.
Well, I also thought he was down there for months.
And that's the thing. They make it seem in the movie like the expedition actually lasts a lot longer than the book. The book, they
But they had
literally are only there a
They had
couple of months.
Gillette shavers, down there. I always imagined that they grew beards
Well,
in
it says that they do in the book.
in the book. Yeah.
They come out and they're, they look crazy because they're,
You can't.
unshaven and
You can't. Okay. The character of Axel is not Axel in
he's Alex.
Alec.
Alec.
Had that nice Scottish name. He's played by Pat Boone, this was during his crooner time frame, and they do have him sing a couple times. And every time he started singing, I would turn to Rachel. Here we go. Um,
I
and
don't mind having music in a
well,
movie, but
he's a pinup
it
guy.
didn't seem like it
They
worked.
had to have his face is just so, I was like, that's a good shave job. But how did they do that so deep in the earth? Did he use obsidian, volcanic glass to shave with?
Well, I thought it was funny because they mentioned the woman's hair. They're like,
Getting in the
if we
way.
had
Yeah.
a razor, we could chop that off for you. And it's like, and yet
Just use
you're
what
all clean
clean
shaven.
shaven, yeah.
So, if you can't cut her hair and yet you can shave your face, that
Okay,
doesn't quite work.
I know this is not related. Could you tell me the theory that you had? And there actually is a unofficial name for this theory in all these podcasts and stuff that I listen to that talk about movies.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's
We'll
dying.
end on that because
Okay.
we've
Yeah.
been going for a while.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
We got to come back up to.
okay, my theory was that, at that moment after Axel is in the dark for 4 days and he falls and he's rediscovered by the professor, that's kind of the moment when you get the underground ocean and the magical electric lights that are just lighting up everywhere. And, they're able to see the entire rest of the time. And that's when you see the forest and the dinosaurs and the graveyard of
The
bones
giant, the
and,
mammoth, and all that.
yeah, and everything kind of gets very fantastical after that point. So my thought was, yeah, he actually just died alone in the dark, and the rest of it was, as he's dying, it's like he's just dreaming the rest of this.
Yeah, the theory is called the dying dream, and people will watch something and someone will get their head knocked, and then everything else that happens in the movie after that is they're dead the whole time. That's why. So it's a way anything that's strange and nonsensical doesn't make sense. That we would just go, oh, it's a movie, so go with it, right? No, this is the dream they have before dying. And the podcast that I listened to, they called it a Jacob's Ladder situation. There was a movie called Jacob's Ladder, and as you remember, Jacob's Ladder is the ladder to heaven, right? Well, he's having all these really strange things occurring, and you find out, spoiler alert, you find out that he was in Vietnam. He was in a experimental drug thing, where it's hallucination, LSD, all this kind of stuff. So everything after that was him working through relationships and his son, and all this kind of stuff. And it's the Jacob's Ladder situation. The whole, the twist is that it's all a dying dream. So honestly, that makes a lot of sense. And when she said that, I was just like,
Yeah.
that I remembered all the times people had tried to pin everything on a dying dream. It's almost become like a joke, but in this, it actually fits really nicely. And now I don't know why I never thought of that. And now I don't think I'll be able to unsee it now. This book will always be that to me. But there you go.
Yeah. But another interesting journey with Jules Verne. So not quite my favorite, but I'm sure it's some.
We get two bangers, which would be 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Mysterious Island, and we get two clunkers.
Well, again, I think Around the World in 80 Days is actually more interesting and more fun.
You think there's some good elements to that?
I think there is. And I know that there have been a lot of movie remakes of it that people have really enjoyed and had fun with. And I'm pretty sure it was really well received when it was written too. So, yeah, we'll have to see what we end up thinking as we revisit that this next week. So
I wager you'll visit us next week for Around the World in 80 Days. But it'll only be 7 days, and then we'll be back.
Excellent.
Ah,
All right. Well, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for coming along on this journey with us.
to the center of this book.
And back again.
And back again.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.